60s. McLuhan has been mentioned many times, was doing a lot of his writing, called Magnus Robot Fighter, which was about a future in North America, where everybody was at leisure because the robots took care of everything. And that still, to a lot of people, seems like a plausible future. Google Cars is part of that, and all these other different levels of robots, which brings up the question of do we work in the future, or do we find another way to let's say, spend our time, to use a continuous word for it. It's a fascinating point.
Just a little bit more about the topic of values. With technology, it almost seems like this platform and access to technology, it gives people a way of mimicking values, because you don't have access to a lot of information or values, especially with technology now growing in third world countries. It almost seems like it gives them an opportunity to mimic the cooler values, or the values they find more appealing. So it's just something to think about.
Rohinton's opening comments, sorry, I keep coming back to your opening comments, but you talked about the fact that the technology as a globalization does not equal homogenization, that there's variance in how people respond, and they respond differently in different regions and different cultures, different socioeconomic situations, and so on. That Rohinton and I both worked at International Development Research Center, IDRC, which supported research and development in developing regions of the world. I think we learned that technologies don't solve development issues. People do. People solve issues. People in real communities solve issues. So the solutions are in the communities where the problem exists. You can assist them through R&D, but you can't bring the solution in. And what occurs, positively and negatively, in a region relates to the realities and of the people in that community, or wherever you want to define community. If you really want to solve an issue, you have to engage the community where the issue is, and the solution will come from the ethical, moral principles, and whatever holds that community together is the bond that makes it work. It isn't. I think we found in development assistance world that technology did that. Not saying technology doesn't matter, and you can't use technology. But you can't force people to use a water pump in a community where they don't have water. If for some reason they don't want to use it for reasons that have nothing to do with water. If they don't create their own approach to the solution, it's not going to work. So I think, Bob, you're saying AI has, what was it? AI has no value, or no ethical moral principle, or what was your words? What did you say?
Well, that artificial intelligence, I mean, people talk about the singularity. When someone's going to come up with a computer that's going to design another computer that's smarter than it, and it'll design something even smarter, and pretty soon the computers will be smarter than us and they're going to take over. Which is ridiculous, because the computer has no desire, it has no goals, there's no telos. It has nothing that it wants. So how could it make any kind of decision? How could it be of any help? All it can do is compute. And we have to put in the values. And it's hard for us to put in values when we're not aware of what's going on, because we're just dazzled by this technological horn of plenty that provides us with lots of clothes, lots of shopping, lots of vacations, everything.
But don't you think that the people who are funding the AI certainly have some kind of agenda in mind? I mean, you're completely removing the idea of who's paying for all of this.
Well, if you read the literature, you would know that some guys are worried that the damn thing won't be, you can't shut it off. Like, what happens if it starts to do things that are...
No, certainly, but it would, one would imagine the people that are paying for it currently have uses and values. The problem is, it's their values that are being invested in AI right now. It's not valueless.
Don't forget the people that are actually coding it.
Decoding it, all these things are happening.
It's the ultimate concentration of power.
Certainly.
It has
And
to
that
come
has
down
to
to
that's
systems.
scary.
The other thing I wanted to mention was, you talk about giving people technologies, I think we've learned by now, just how often you hand somebody a piece of technology with a specific perfect purpose in your mind, and they use it for something else
Right.
anyway, so. Once it's out of your hands, it's out of your hands.
Called hacking.
People maybe still remember the automaker Volkswagen
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
Good point.
and the whole scandal over the cheap devices, right? So I think that to me illustrates the whole gap between the technology available and the regulations that are to be followed, versus what somebody aimed to do, which is I guess in this case to gain a lot of market share, specifically in the United States.
And that was AI.
Yeah, it was AI that did that.
Yeah.
Boy, we fooled those regulators.
We also mentioned the Internet of Things as well, and the Internet of Things and hacking go very well hand in hand, don't they? I grew up with the guys from LOD, Legion of Doom. We talked about communities of self-selecting communities. I represented Canada as far as a bunch of white, late teen, early 20 hackers were. So I mean, it's kind of funny that for them, and bringing back into the idea of people becoming more aware of Canada. I mean, all along, the differences between our outlooks were very apparent, but having grown up with them, that was just an aside thing, having grown up with them, I see kind of every technology that comes out through that filter. I mean, can it be broken? Can it be hacked? What happens when it is hacked? When we're talking about cars, self-driving cars being hacked, we're already seeing cars that aren't quite self-driving, but they are computerized being hacked. And when it's the Internet of Things overall, then I mean, your fridge can be hacked, everything can be hacked. What world do we live in at that point?
A good point about our inability to effectively plan around a lot of those things.
What kind of world do we live in is the question in that case. Nora?
Sorry, I missed the question.
She asked what kind of world do we live in, if that is the case, if everything's hackable.
Well, I mean, that is specifically one thing that people really do talk a lot about is that, is the Internet of Things and hackability, right? And there's both, I think, an interesting potential in there in terms of using tools for reasons other than which they were originally conceived for. There's creativity and there's power, there's flexibility in that. And to an extent, humans have always used technologies for reasons other than what they were invented for. But there's obviously a lot of dangerous, chaotic potential in that as well, especially when it comes to all these connected objects.
I saw it the other day, they were doing a Kickstarter for an intrauterine device that was so smart. The guy looked at it and went, there's no way in hell. Just no way I want that hacked.
I wonder if I could refer back to what Hinton said. I may not have understood properly or at all, but something to the effect, I believe, that globalization has not meant homogenization. Now, I haven't traveled as widely probably as most people here, but I have been to India and have good friends there. And I would put forward a counter point, if you will, that I think there's a hell of a lot of homogenization. If you go back to the McBride report, read Culture Inc. and so on, there's an infosphere which is largely run by corporations for profit. And they peddle the same stories all over the world. And perhaps the most troubling one right now is the so-called war on terror. And there's a lot of evidence, I emphasize evidence with a capital E, that a tremendous number of the so-called terrorist events carried out by extremist jihadis are in fact not done by said extremist jihadis. They're called false flag operations. And this is a virtual taboo to mention false flag ops, even though various of them have been proven in history.